Okay, let's jump in. Um, Thank you for joining us as we unlock the path to higher profitability. I'm very excited to have a special guest, Zane Ponsetti from Wildcat Movers, on with us today. Like many of you, Zane started small with a 16-foot trailer and an old Bronco. He shared this photo with us. Now he has a 7-figure moving business with 12 trucks and over 30 movers. He's going to tell us how he not only grew in size and revenue, but how he grew his profit margin too. Fun fact about Zane, he's an avid mountain biker. I suspect many of you on the call have something that you love to do that has to take a back seat while you run your moving business. Zane is going to share how he's effectively removed himself from the day-to-day while still running a super successful moving business. Okay, thank you again, everyone, for joining us. I know you're all very busy, but I encourage you to stay on because here's what you're going to hear about today. Zane's major breakthroughs on his way to 20% net profits, crucial early steps you need to take before you gain a lot of market share, and what Zane looks at every morning to set himself up for success. All that, and we're going to have time for questions at the end. So let's get right to it. I'm going to hand things over to Zack, the head of customer success at SmartMoving. If you're a SmartMoving customer, you probably already know Zack. Zack and his team make sure all our customers have what they need to succeed. And there are even things you can do within SmartMoving to boost your profitability. So listen for those nuggets along the way. Zack, take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, Brianna. And Zane, thank you for joining us here. I'm excited about our fireside chat today. And for everybody, this is going to be informal, right? Zane and I have talked a little bit, but he has a ton of great information to share. And I love having our customers on here because we can talk all day about profitability, but we're not in the seats of our customers and doing this on a day-to-day basis. So Zane, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Zane, why don't you start off? You know, some people may know who Wildcat Movers are. Some people may know who you are. People probably don't, a lot of them, but kind of give us, Brianna shared a tiny bit, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and then kind of introduce your company and kind of where it is and how you operate, and just give a little bit of background.
Yeah, sure. So I started in College Station when I was right out of, or actually in school. Operated down there from 2007 to 2016. Moved to Dallas in 2013. Started that branch, and then 3 years later closed the College Station branch. So we only have the one in Dallas now. Just became pretty obvious pretty quick that a major metro like Dallas had a lot more potential than running two. And back then I didn't have systems and processes, so I wasn't able to run that second branch remotely in an effective manner. Like a lot of people, I was, had managers stealing and, not very good checks and balances. Also, the technology now has made it much easier to manage remotely. But yeah, so now we've just been trucking along in Dallas. We've got over 1,800 reviews. We're one of or probably the top rated moving company in Dallas. We've got 13 trucks. We peaked at about 36 movers this summer. We're down to about 30, 32, I think, right now. I've got 2 office managers, 3 operations managers, and 5 salespeople. So yeah, really proud of what we've built, and yeah, just trucking along.
Yeah, that's awesome. I will attribute some of that success to being in College Station, right? I went to Texas A&M, so it's
Nice.
a good place, but probably not a ton of business there, right? To grow a business, but that's
yeah,
awesome.
it's grown quite a bit. But when I was there, the whole metro surrounding counties was only about 250,000 people, where and DFW, it's 7-8 million, I think, now, and just within 20 minutes we got like 3 million people or something. So a lot bigger customer base in Dallas.
Absolutely. Now, interesting thing is your business is in Dallas, but if you pointed the camera out your window, we would see mountains out your window, right? Since you are not physically in Dallas and you don't live here. So love for you to share kind of where you live and how do you manage that, right? From a business perspective and managing remotely.
Yeah, I was never a Texas guy at heart. I always loved getting up to Colorado when I could, when I was living down there full time, and always knew that this is where I wanted to be. So yeah, during the pandemic, or actually 2019, I moved to Fort Collins for a year and then traveled around. Now live in beautiful Durango, Colorado. Luckily, there's a direct flight here to Dallas, so I can be there in 2 hours, which was a selling point, but I would have lived here regardless. But I think the biggest tools that we use for me to be able to not live where my business is again technology. SmartMoving has been a big part of that, as well as having Samsara in our trucks so we can see what the guys are doing at all times, as well as having cameras in our offices, and then Ring Central, recording all of our phone calls. Utilizing all those technologies, it's really like, I can't go pick up a truck from the shop, but besides that, I can still manage things, look at KPIs. I feel like I have a very good grasp on what's going on. And it is helpful for me to go down there. I try not to go in the summer, as it's a little toasty down there right now. But it's usually spring, winter, fall, I try to go about every month or two. And I like being there. My team's great. It's kind of, they have a really great family environment down there. So it's always nice to get down there and see everybody face to face a little bit too.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, and I'm curious for you to share, right? Because as we're, obviously this chat's focused on profitability, and obviously to grow a profitable business, it takes an owner's time to really focus on the business. How, if you were to share, as you were kind of building your business and then you were able to go remote, like what were some of those key things that you did as part of your business to be able to enable you to manage remotely, right? And to have, have a business that could operate, day to day on its own.
Yeah, I think we're super process oriented. So, I didn't know how crucial it was when I did it, but I started my first manual probably like 3 or 4 years into business, and it was like 10 pages with some sketches and, pretty rudimentary. But then, now it's like every person at our company has a job title. We have a very clear job description. We make all of the movers read the mover manual before they even get hired. We have them do a test on it during their interview process. So the expectations are set day one on what you're going to do at our company. And then we, have KPIs for each department. And we hold people accountable to those. So really just having really sound processes. And like for instance, this year I just had an operations meeting this morning. Our damage rates are a little higher than we'd like. We're about 0.8% of our revenue and damage reimbursements this year, which is higher than it's ever been. So I've got my ops team focused pretty intently on that, and we're trying to figure out more training and different ways that we can continue to improve that KPI. But yeah, mostly being process oriented.
Got it. No, that's great. And I'm curious, when you were first making that change, were there like one or two key hires that you made that totally kind of shifted your trajectory to be able to start to grow and to do new things?
Yeah. So my office manager, Daniel Massey, he was actually just a buddy of mine. He was a bartender at the local pub down the street from my apartment where I used to live. And he came on in 2014. He's been with me for 10 years now, which is crazy. He always jokes that you get less for murder than what he's got with me. But yeah, he was crucial. I mean, at that time, I was basically a one-man show, taking all the calls, dispatching trucks. We only had, I don't know, 3 trucks maybe in Dallas, 2 or 3 trucks. And I was working a ton and, getting him to take all the calls. We didn't have great processes at that point. But that's when we started digging down and building those processes. he was a huge hire. And then I've had a few operations managers in that same time frame, but the one that's with us now, he's been with us for 5 years. And really just I took him to the Moving Titan retreat and in the spring this year, and just trying to grow them as people, and obviously continue to increase their pay. But yeah, those two guys have been pivotal, as well as their subordinates that support their efforts as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. So before we get into profitability, it's going to kind of lead into it. But you mentioned, you have your operations calls, and there's some KPIs that you're looking at, right? I mean, before we kind of get into the profitability numbers, curious if you don't mind kind of sharing what are some of those core KPIs, right, that you're looking at as you're looking kind of at the numbers of the business as you're going through day to day.
Yeah. My KPI, first thing when I wake up, I like to check our sales from the day before. So 5 to 7 days a week, I'm checking that first thing in the morning. Then I look at our Google Analytics, see our web traffic, what pages converted, and then I check our website on SEMrush. And that's usually kind of how I start the day myself. We're actually looking for a marketing person right now, but basically between me and a freelance guy right now that do most of the marketing efforts. And so I kind of have, I look at the cost for each like lead type and the percentage of revenue that those cost on a monthly basis. On a more regular basis, I look at our damage claims as a percentage of revenue. What percentage of our moves have claims? We talk about if we've gotten any negative reviews. We talk about our mover turnover. That's been a big one that we really started to focus on last year, because last summer we had huge turnover. Part of it was just so stinking hot in Dallas, as you know. Last summer, brutal.
Yeah, last year was brutal. Yeah.
But we've been able to get that number way, way down. Like in July, we only lost 3 movers out of 32 guys. So our retention has been really strong. We track how long our claim turnover time is, which is not great right now, but that's something we always try to keep under a week. And then sales, we have a sales goal for every pay period, which is 2 weeks at our company. We have monthly sales goals, yearly sales goals, and then they do sales huddles every day to set goals and look at what they booked the day before.
Yeah.
And then just reviews as a company. We're huge on reviews, review fetching, getting photo reviews. And so, yeah, I would say those are our main operational, sales, and marketing KPIs.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Yeah, and it's interesting to kind of hear you say that, right? Because we work with all types of movers, right, from the very start. Ones who are early on in their journey to ones who are well tenured. And your journey's been since 2007, right? So it took you guys a little bit of time, but I'm curious just to hear your opinion on how important knowing your numbers are, right? So even if you were to go back to your 2007 self to say, what would I have done differently to get where I am today faster, right? Are there certain things that you've learned from a knowing your numbers perspective, or from that standpoint that it would be important for people to hear?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the number one thing that's positively affected my business is just getting out there and networking with other moving company owners. You can innovate in this industry with technology, marketing, branding, those things, taking care of your people. But at the end of the day, there's tens of thousands of people that have done this before us that have been successful. And I started going to Louis Massaro's conferences in 2018 and met a ton of guys. I've got a group chat of about 20 of us that we mastermind. Now we go on vacation together. I was just down visiting a couple guys, Wade and Chad and Blake Boyd down in Florida, and just growing that network, because if I have a question about anything, I've got somebody in my corner that I can call that's already been through this, and they can give me an answer with data that they've been collecting through years of their business. And that's just so paramount. If I had done that, it wasn't as easily accessible in 2007. And I feel like Lewis really opened a lot of our eyes to the power of that. And now, Wade and Chad are doing the Moving Titan retreats, which I highly recommend. If not even for the content, just for the networking. Go meet some guys. I talk to a lot of people in my market. I'm very friendly with most people, but getting people outside your market really allows you to kind of open up more because you're not direct competitors. So I think if I had had those connections at a younger age, I think I would have got to where I'm at a lot quicker.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of power in, learning from people who have been there, done that, and instead of running into walls, trying to figure it out on your own, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's jump a little bit into kind of the topic of the webinar, right? From profitability, right? Obviously, all the things we're talking about have an impact on profitability, what we're going into. But do you mind just kind of sharing, like, what are your profitability targets for your company, right? What kind of numbers are you striving towards to measure success?
Yeah, we want to hit at least 20% net profit margin. Last year, we had a really slow fourth quarter, and I think I'll just double check this. We ended at 14.6% net profit last year, but we're back to 20% this year. And in like 2022, I think we're in the low 20 percentile, 22%. So, yeah, I mean, for me, that's, if you're going to do moves, why not do less moves and make more money off of them? It may affect some of your booking ratios. And that's a big concern that a lot of people have is, they're booking at 30-40% or so, they say, and they hear, oh, if I go premium, I'm gonna only book, say, 25 to 30 is really good for a premium rate company. Yeah, you're going to do less moves, but the moves that you do, you're going to make more money. So that's really always been my philosophy, even when we were doing 400,000 a year, all the way up to now we did 2.7 million last year, and we're on pace for probably closer to 3 this year. And we've kept that profitability, we've kept that high standard, we've kept that high mover pay, and always provided a good service. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people say, oh, you can't be in the 20 percentiles. There's plenty of movers out there doing it. And typically it's the number one thing is just charging premium rates, to get that extra margin.
Yeah. No, but I love that because it goes against what a lot of people think, right? Of, let's see how many jobs we can get and just kind of turn and burn, right? And go through it all as fast as we can. It's an interesting theory. Like any advice you would give to somebody who is operating on that, we have to have, 30 to 40% conversion rate, and let's do as many jobs as we can. Like, is there anything you learned in your process to say, I know you said you started that early on, but, any advice you would give to a mover to say, all right, how do we flip this, right? How do we change that mentality to, or things that we need to do in our business to become a premium mover versus just the, low cost, high volume company?
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with doing a good job for your customers. So, you've got to have a decent truck. You've got to have, I mean, that's a minimum. Half of our fleet we've purchased brand new in the last 3 years or so, but I didn't always have that. I used to buy 5, 6, 7-year-old trucks. But you've got to have great equipment for your guys. You've got to have quality pads, bands, shrink wrap, TV boxes. You got to have all the things so that your movers can do a good job, and then you've got to train them. So one thing that we do is, every mover that we hire goes through new mover training. We've got about 20 pieces of training furniture in our warehouse, and it's about a 3 to 5 hour course where they go pad and wrap all the training furniture. They load it on a truck, they unload it, they restack it. And then we do a quick little orientation, just kind of, what to wear, all the little basic things that you think are common sense. And we kind of cover that. So we start our guys off, to where we're not having that, on a very, very uncommon where customers call and saying, hey, you send me a brand new guy, because we try to get our guys up to the standard of they can stay busy, they can contribute for the entire move on day one, and we're not training them on day one. And then that's another thing with profitability is a lot of people just they'll throw a third guy on a 2-man. Well, now they've got a guy that doesn't know what he's doing at all. They're having to have other movers train them on the job, and then they're not making any money on that job because they're training a guy. And so yeah, just and then just holding your guys accountable, getting feedback from them on damage claims, training them, doing spot checks. We have our ops team. We're out checking moves every single day. We don't get to all of them, but I'd say, a third to a half of our moves every day, a manager's stopping in, giving those guys feedback on the spot. So yeah, and then once you can deliver that premium service, once you as an owner are starting to delegate some of that responsibility to your sales and your ops team, you got to charge higher rates to be able to pay for those high quality managers. So it's, it can snowball up really quickly once you start empowering people and charging, a good quality rate. Like, for example, if we do, if you do $1 million in sales, and I think you said the industry average is around 7% net profit, that's $70K. Maybe you lose a little moves, but if you're doing 20% net margin on, $800,000 in moves, well, now you're making 160 grand, and those are real life numbers. Like I've seen that in other companies. And if you've already built systems and processes to do a good job, why not charge the customer for it,
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. And I think, a big part of what you're talking about is, obviously the customer, experience, right? As you have your training and kind of expectations. But I think a lot of your business is coming from referrals, right? Is that correct? Which, obviously all the things you're just talking about plays into that, right? Do you mind sharing a little bit of kind of your mix of where you really market versus referrals and how that, kind of impact of taking care of your people and having good people and trucks on the business?
Yeah. Yeah, currently we've been crushing reviews and SEO for years. We've really ramped up in the last year. I really dedicated back into learning the new processes. I hired a bunch of people on Upwork and built a ton of content for so anyways, about half of our business now comes from Google, whether that's them seeing our reviews or finding us organically below the maps and the organic search. I think it's about close to 50-50 on that right now. So that's a huge part. Then, yeah, usually around a quarter of our business is past clients and referrals from past clients.
Awesome.
And then, we do postcards, but Dallas is one of the most competitive direct mail markets in the country for moving. When I was out doing in-homes myself, if a premium house, you would typically see 30 to 50 mailers. Now other markets, especially in that few 100,000 to $1 million mark, you may only be mailing against 3 to 5 other companies, which I would love that. We could crush it, but the ceiling obviously is a lot lower for the total market that you can acquire anyways. So pros and cons there of being in a huge market versus a smaller one.
Absolutely. That was great. So let's dive into a little bit, we talked about your profitability targets, right? So what are some of the main numbers, right? What are the things you're measuring, right, on a day-to-day basis that directly impact, your overall profitability number that you're looking at from a day-to-day basis?
Well, the biggest cost of any moving company should be your labor. So our movers typically run us between about 26 and 28% of revenue. Earlier days when I had less overhead staff, my prices were a little lower. We would maybe be in that 30 to 35% just for the movers. But then as I've added overhead staff, I've had to, that's had to go down as a percentage. So for our company, we're typically in that high 20, 27, 28% with the mover labor. Then our sales team typically is running between about 8 and 12% of revenue. This year it's really good. It's around that 8 mark. Years past, it's usually 10, 11. Kind of just depends on if we have if we're a little bloated there or not. We're doing pretty good right now with that. And our ops team is usually about 8 to 12%. And those two overhead numbers, the sales and the ops team, I've seen really large companies that they're as low as 5, 6%. That's pretty hard to do on even my size scale. But hopefully we can keep chunking that down. Maybe our goal is to see if we can't get that in the 7 to 9% range as we scale up a little bit. And then trucks, that's another big expense. Usually we're trying to run about 7 to 10%. And yeah, I mean, that includes insurance, fuel, interest payments. That doesn't count our principal payments. That's, a balance sheet, transaction, not a profit, an income statement, item. But yeah, trying to keep, and then repair and maintenance, we've continued to chunk that down as our fleets got newer and newer. Obviously we were paying for it in truck payments, but that is going towards the principle of nice new trucks that have value whenever we're done using them. So.
And do you run every one of your trucks every day, like to full capacity, or what's your strategy there?
No, not even close. So we've got 13 trucks. I mean, there's been days we've sent, 12 or 13 out a handful of times this year, but typically what I'm trying to do is run 10 to 11 of those on any given weekend. And so yeah, we try to keep extra trucks. Once you get up to this size, I think most people say one spare for every 5 or 6 trucks you have. So we're a little heavy there. As our fleet continues to get newer, we may, stretch that ratio slightly, but, yeah, we always try to have extra. I mean, when you've got 13 trucks, there's always one that it needs a corner cap fixed, or, needs an oil change, or needs to go in the shop for whatever. So, we're basically cycling a truck in and out of the shop. Every time we pick one up, we're dropping one off usually,
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask. Like, it's, it kind of goes against what you would think of if we're thinking profitability, right? Let's maximize our resources. But, I get, from if you have extra ones on hand, it's probably, if you're saving jobs or not having to repay customers or, things like that, then it's, pays for itself, I would assume.
Yeah, and a big one too is, and I realize, you can't do that day one, right? Like if you're bootstrapping this and you've got 2, 3 trucks, you're going to run 2, 3 trucks every Saturday, and, but as you get bigger, and you're going to have to rent a little bit at that size company too, right? But I can't remember the last time we rented a truck, and rentals, I mean, I see it all the time. People be running, 3, 4 trucks year round, and then summer comes along and they could run 2, 3. They rent a bunch of trucks, and then if you you tear a hole in the roof of a Penske, what would cost you 2, 3 grand if you did it yourself? Penske's charging you 7, 8, 10, and then those trucks are 2 or 3 times as much as a truck payment. So, you might as well have just bought one at that point. And that's where I see a lot of people killing their profitability, is they're trying to do volume without considering the profitability of that job. And so rental costs can really kill a company, especially when you're trying to grow, because it's hard to turn down that work when the phone's ringing. But if you can't make money on it, or especially if you're going to lose money, I mean, just, take care of the customers you got and do really good work. And then, our repeat referral can be as high as 40% in any given year. So, if you do $1,000 job, that's $400 next year if you do a good job for that customer.
Right.
And you got to keep that mentality, and that's how you build a strong base where you have good reviews, and you become a known brand and entity in your community.
Right. Yeah, and it's and I love that concept of kind of the profitability killers, right? Because there's things that are probably just under the rug you may not really pay attention to, right? Like truck rentals. Is there anything else like that that comes to mind that you've seen, like it doesn't seem like a big deal on the surface, but as you kind of continue to grow your business, that it's just chipping away at cash and decreasing that profitability number?
Yeah, I would say marketing is a huge one. Historically, we grew really slow. I mean, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. It took us a long time to ever hit 1 million, and we've scaled up really quick since we did that. Just here in the last, I just hit 1 million in sales in a year, I think in 2019 maybe, or something, somewhere around there, give or take a year. And so we used to have super low marketing, 1, 2%. Now we tried pushing the envelope a little bit, and we kind of did it the wrong time last year. We were really charging hard from the spring through the summer, and the market just went away. I mean, interest rates went up, housing sales went down, and so we had to get lean again. I've cut. If marketing is not profitable, I'll maybe break even, and so trying to get like a 4 or 5x return on my ad spend. But because of that, we're premium movers, so like we don't even do PPC. We were doing Google Guarantee, but that a few months ago quit being profitable. It became a negative. It wasn't even break even anymore, so we cut that. So yeah, keeping an eye on each one of those categories, and not just lumping it and saying, oh, we spend 10% on marketing, we spend 8%, and so we're doing good. There's probably a couple holes in there. We could probably, cut a marketing source or two, maybe cut that in half and do pretty much the same amount of work and make more money. And again, it's always about getting those margins. I get huge. It's an investment, SEO, but I get huge returns on that now because I've invested in it for so long and done so much work that return is super high. We do email marketing with our past clients, which is practically free. It only costs me, you know, 200, 300, 400 bucks a month to do mail marketing. We do that all in house, and it's 25% of our revenue. Now, not every you can't directly correlate that, but it's a huge ROI.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it all comes back to like, what you're getting at, like knowing your numbers, right? If you know that, if something's being profitable or not, right? So where it may feel like we're just doing all this marketing, we've got deals coming in, but if it's costing you more than, you're making off of those, then it's secretly probably killing your profitability, right? As you're going forward.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So I know we've got a few minutes left, and I want to talk about a couple other pieces real quick. So you've kind of built your business. You talked about you're big on process, right? And you've obviously learned a lot, right, in the last 15 years as you've built this out. And you've created something to help movers, right, that are kind of starting or want to learn a little bit more. So do you mind kind of sharing a little bit more about Pro Mover University and kind of the impetus behind it and what it is and how it can help people?
Yeah, so ProMoverUniversity.com, it's a training platform we put together. Initially it started, I have this freelance contractor that does different stuff for us, and I hired him to come film our new mover training. I've got 3 ops managers. So, I mean, hopefully we have a lot of resiliency there where we don't ever lose them all. But if we did, I want to have all that recorded, all that knowledge and that training base. And so we recorded it, and then we recorded our driver training also. And I was like, the guy that filmed it, he was like, hey, this stuff's pretty good, man. Like, I bet somebody buy this. So
Yeah.
we threw it up on ProMoverUniversity.com. It's currently $98 a month. And we're doing a half price coupon today for everybody listening. So it'd be $49 for your first month. And then we've just slowly been adding some stuff to it. I think some of the cool stuff I break down our 2022 P&L because that was a really good year. And so I share that with our I guess, students. I do a whole video breakdown. I believe you can download it as well, so you can see what that year looked like. We do a marketing ROI breakdown in SmartMoving. We have some pricing stuff where I talk about how we price our jobs with a 60% gross margin on our locals and our long distance.
Yeah.
That's a big place where people, I think, get hung up is they'll do so many lines of business that they don't actually know which one is profitable because they're not like keeping really good allocation of expenses to the job. And so they may have 60% on locals, but they're doing 30% on long distance, and they're losing money by doing that. So and I know SmartMoving came out with a profitability thing within SmartMoving, which I haven't really played with too much, but I think that'd be a good place for people to start as well. Kind of put those numbers in and kind of look at that. And then we're gonna keep doing some marketing stuff with ProMover University. We're gonna record some SEO content and just kind of some basics on what's been successful with my company. And that's, at the end of the day, it's not fluff. It's like I'm actually showing screenshots of the back end settings of SmartMoving. We're looking at marketing ROI reports. We're showing P&Ls. We got downloadable manuals for sales managers, operations managers. We've got mover manuals. We've got a really cool one that I don't think our current clients are really taking advantage of. We got a driver training checklist. It's like 4 pages. That way you could take your new drivers out, actually check off every maneuver, talk about the truck, show them where all the fluids are, all that stuff. And so, yeah, it's been a fun little project, and, I'm really just trying to kind of help ease people's pain points and share some of the knowledge that I've had. And maybe we'll have some other industry experts here soon sharing some knowledge as well. We'll see.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. And Brianna put up the code here, right, with the website and the use code of SmartMoving to get that monthly percentage off. So thank you for sharing that. So I have one more question before we wrap up, but I want to pause and say we're going to have questions here at the end. So while Zane's answering this question, if you want to put your questions in the chat, then we can hit whatever questions we have at the end. But you went, Zane, 14 or 15 years without SmartMoving, right? Obviously grew into a very successful business. And then you've only been on our platform for about a year and a half. I'm curious just to share kind of what prompted you to make the switch to technology, and how is that, what have you seen kind of from an impact perspective on your business over the last year and a half?
Yeah, it's definitely reduced a ton of admin. We just got signed up with Remedy, so we're taking payments in there now too. We implemented a lot of stuff, but we didn't do the crew app until recently, really utilizing that to its fullest, using the iPads and the digital contracting and all that stuff. And that's just been so helpful. I mean, it's cut out so much admin, not writing up invoices, not having to keep track of invoices. And it just made all that a lot easier. We were using a basic CRM. It was just basically a sales CRM, track our leads, run them through the pipeline. We had a spreadsheet that we were estimating jobs with, which was pretty near and dear to my heart. I built that over, like a decade. So it did a really good job of giving us the right numbers, but having to upload that into our CRM, and we got to a point where my staff is like, what are we doing here? Like, man, we got to embrace some more technology. And then I looked at SmartMoving a couple of times early on in the early days, 1.0. I guess it wasn't 1.0 then, but now and I did think it was missing some features, so we kept checking in with you guys, every 6 months or a year. Do you have this? Do you have that? And SmartMoving's just added so much stuff, so many features, and if they finally got it to the point where we could just input, all the variables and spitting out local and long distance. That was a big one that you guys were able to accomplish for us when we came on, was being able to quote our long distance and not have to use anything external from a estimating standpoint. And so that's when we pulled the trigger. I felt like it was finally to a point, and it's been great. It's been a good ride with you guys. We've been loving to see where it goes. And, you know, I've worked with your product team a little bit. I really appreciate how much you guys have listened to my feedback. And, you know, it's been fun working with you guys.
Yeah, no, we always appreciate the feedback. So it's great. No, it's good for everybody. We you know, we like to hear it and trying to incorporate as much in the platform as we can. So no, that's awesome. Well, good. Well, Zane, I'm going to say thank you real quick, but we're not done yet, right? Appreciate it. I want to kind of turn it over to Brianna and see if we have any questions in the chat that Zane can answer before we kind of start wrapping things up.
Yeah, this has been great so far. Thank you so much, guys. Up on the screen, I just put a quick summary of some of the numbers that Zane shared. So if you want to take a look at that while you're putting your questions in, I'll just let that hang on the screen. I did see someone asked, Zane, what did you recommend for your claims ratio? That one's not on here.
Yeah, we're currently, for this year, it's our highest ever, which, you know, is not good, but we're at 0.8% of our revenue we've paid out. You know, a lot of the better operated companies I know, you know, try to keep it 2% of revenue or less for your damage payouts. Historically, we've tried to stay below 0.5%, which is why we have such good reviews. You know, we don't break, or we weren't breaking a lot of stuff. We have noticed we've been selling valuation for the last couple of years, which is, you know, open the conversation with the customer that, like, hey, if you have a damage, this is how we're going to pay you. So they're already aware that they can file a claim now that we sell valuation. But it has, so therefore we're collecting more money to put towards claims, but therefore our claims have gone up. And so we're actually talking about that today. You know, I think we want to now be below 0.5% of revenue when you subtract what we sell in valuation. And that's, which is a pretty lofty goal. But you know, that's what we're shooting for with our premium service and our premium rates.
Gotcha.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Let's see, we've got about a minute left here. So if we get cut off, we do have some good questions here. If we get cut off, we can follow up with you after. I also saw in the chat, where are the customers? And when there are customers, why is the price always too high? So Zane, you talked about being that premium mover. We all, you know, are experiencing the same interest rates and the same economy, and like, oh my God, what it costs to just go to the grocery store right now. How do you respond to some of those objections that you get about price?
Well, we've been really fortunate. I mean, we had a really bad October of 23 through February of 24. It was rough. We have 5 months, housing market's down. There's just less moves to be had. Our company, me personally, I doubled down on SEO. I started getting back into it, like I said, and we've been growing our market share in spite of a shrinking housing market. So we're really fortunate, and that's not something that you can maybe necessarily turn on tomorrow, but it is something that I highly suggest everybody start looking into. If you're not using a tool like SEMrush or Ahrefs, like, you got this isn't going away. And even you can't just say, oh, I'm going to hire an SEO company and then wash your hands of it. You need to know how to talk to that company. You need to know how to hold them accountable. You need to know, like, what KPIs look like for that. Like, what is a good conversion rate for your website, you know? And so I would say, you know, dive into the digital marketing on Google, not the paid stuff, the organic stuff. That's huge opportunity right there. You know, we haven't experienced a downturn like this in the industry since like 2008 when I was getting started. So I didn't even know the market was bad because, you know, it was so small, it didn't even affect me, you know? So like, had we continued to not be able to grow our market share after that, you know, end of last year, early this year, I mean, you got to start, you know, cutting staff and get through this. and just get super lean. I mean, you know, once we started losing money, that motivates people quite a bit, you know, and I went in and looked at every bank transaction for like 3 months. And I'm like, you know, you got $10 subscription here and this and that, and you go in and you slash all that out. Now it's not going to make you a lot of money doing that, but you know, if I was still struggling and this housing market was still affecting me, then yeah, I'd look back at how I was making money, you know, when I was doing 30% of the business, and I'd go back to operating that way.
That's a really great point. And I love what you're saying about leaning into SEO and organic, because you can just continue to pay money to Google and, you know, spend more and more on ads, and the return there is going to just diminish over time. So it's really good to have a foothold in a place where you can grow organically. That sounds like it's really important. Okay, very good. We are over time, so I'm going to let everybody go. But real quick, I want to wrap up. Zane shared a little bit about his experience with SmartMoving, how he got started and what he's done with it just in the past year and a half. So if you're interested in trying it out and you're not already a customer, there's a QR code here. I'm going to leave it up for just a couple seconds. You have time to grab your phone if you want to get a demo with us, and we can show you everything that the platform can do, how it can help save you time and grow that profitability that I know you're all interested in. So real quick, I've got a poll for us before we close. And while I get this up, I just want to say thank you again to Zack and Zane. The conversation has been really great, and I appreciate both of you.
Thank you, Zane. Great information. We appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, guys, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
And now you guys will watch me struggle with my poll. So let me see if I can figure this out. And if not, we'll close it down and let everybody go. All right, guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Right.
Appreciate it.